Good morning, good morning. It is Maggie Rose Cunningham and it is Magic in Mind, and we are starting a new cycle working with the energy of the healer as the new moon arrives this week. It's going to be arriving on Friday, so we've got a little bit of time. So we are working at the moment, we're building up that energy of feeling into the healer. But I'd love to know from you as you're popping in, as you're joining me, how did you find working with the magician? Now, what insights did you get from that work with the magician? Were there any particular runes that you worked with that helped you and supported you in feeling into that pathway of the magician? I know that for me, I worked a lot with Sewello through the course of the month. It's really powerful for me moving from that space of leadership, of moving forward, of knowing the path, knowing the direction, into fluidity and flow. The Swallow rune has this playful energy and this fluid energy, so it's a really lovely energy, rune to work with. It's great for the magician's self. It enhances all of the magical types, as do all of the runes, in fact, but they do so in different ways. They do so in subtle and nuanced ways. Hi Esther, lovely to see you. Hi Suki, lovely to see you. Back from your game reserves and looking forward to it. So you've got Feyu, and I'm assuming that's Feyu that is the rune that you have drawn for either today or this week or the coming cycle. So bear with me one moment because I didn't have my pen out. So I'm going to ask people to share their runes a little bit later, but I will try and keep track for those of you who share them a little bit ahead of time as to the rune that you're working with. But what were the runes that were powerful for you while you were experiencing that magician energy? Chen, you also had Suello. Isn't that funny how you get those synergies, don't you? So, what was the experience of that for you? How did that enhance your magician? How did it support you in that? Sue, again, you've got Ewaz, and again, I'm going to assume that's your future rune when we feel into the healer. So that's coming later. I'll pop those down. So, lovely to see all of you who are joining me live. If you are joining for the replay, do please put, hashtag replay. You can still join in the chat. People will respond. You get lots of collective wisdom coming through the course of the week, or if you're picking this up later in time, do hashtag replay. Say what runes you're working with. Say what you're feeling in terms of, the responses as we're working through the material for today. What's the responses that you are having? Suzanne, you've got Thurisaz. You've been working with Thurisaz this month. Oh, now that's a really powerful rune, isn't it, for working with the magician? That, the power of Thurisaz coming through you and calling your power in. I can really feel that. Sue's saying the magician energy was enhanced for me by Wunyo. It helped me to understand the need for community, and it's a large part of magical work. Absolutely, Sue, and I think this is something that I would have loved to cover more, and obviously we will come back to these parts of the magical self over and over again to deepen our connection with them. But the magician alone can become trapped in ego, can become trapped in, I must do everything myself, I must be in control, I must be in charge, and it limits the potential of their magic such a huge extent, and eventually starts to drain their energy as well. And SD said, I had Perthro last month. I was working with a magician and it helped me to draw on my deepened magics. Oh, yes. And Perthro does that. It brings those things up from the deeps. It does so in I would say a gentle way when we flow with its current. Thurisaz can be more, I stand here, stand up and be counted. Hold your hammer high, do the work that's necessary. Perthro can be more flowing, surrendering to yourself. So often the way I think about Perthro, when people think about surrender, they can often see it as being something that weakens. But when we surrender to ourselves and when we surrender to the magic that is ours, because it is flowing from the universe through us, we are part of the universe, and we come with purpose and we come with a unique energy. There is energy that is available for us when we surrender to our deepest selves. Thank you, Esther, and thank you to everybody for sharing with that. And any more insights around the magician, keep them coming. We are, as I said, we're in a transition period at the moment, really feeling into the healer identity. So my next question for you would be starting to feel a little bit into the healer. Have you ever maybe you've been sitting on a train and then someone has come down and sat next to you, or you've been at work and then a client's come in, or you've been at home and you've had a guest, and you started out being like open, expansive, maybe feeling a little bit energized. There's that sense of perhaps wonder. Not being at like your best, most oomphy yes self, but you are, I'm open to what's possible and what's available. You're in a good place. And then this other person comes in and suddenly you're like, whoa, I feel totally drained. Maybe your heart's going a bit fast. You get a little bit of anxiety, or your jaw's tightening a little bit. You're feeling those frown line comings in. Your body's literally responding to something, and you're like, oh, what's happening here? Like anxiety levels might go up, worry might go up. You might start to feel irritable in some way. Has that ever happened to you? And I'm fairly certain that if it has happened to you, you have probably identified through the course of your lifetime that it is the presence of another being coming into your energy field that has actually shifted and changed your experience of life in that moment. It has had an actual impact on your being. Esther saying, yep, that has. Yes. Sue says for sure. Suzanne all the time. Yeah, absolutely. When we have innate healer energy, this is how we can often experience it, particularly in early childhood. And I suspect that when we were more open to this, when we were sort of more aware of this, a child saying, or you seeing a child who one moment was fine and then they're responding and they're almost like reflecting back what they're feeling from other children around them, that would have been a signal. Oh, this child's got some healing potential here. We need to help them in that moment, because this is the first step for the healer. This is almost like the initiatory moment. The natural healer is in there. Is your first step, because healers are natural receivers. They receive what is present in the present moment, and without the next step pieces to help us along the way to say, well, how do I harness this? How do I actually do something with this? We become drained. We become drained because we don't have any way to move first into a responsive energy where we actually respond and we say, oh, hold on, how do I have the words to, for example, speak to the other person and say, I'm feeling sadness right now. How are you? We don't know to do that. We don't know that that's a thing that we can do. That we can say, okay, that wasn't mine a minute ago. Now it is mine. So where is it coming from? And so we're just with the sadness, right? So that responding energy, and then beyond that, now the path of the healer opens us up to reclaiming, reweaving. And this is what I wanted to explore through the course of today, is the path of the healer can be one where the world is happening to us all the time, or we are happening to the world. And that's the support piece. That is what people who are innately natural healers need. They need the support to claim their power, their ability to. So when we're talking about power, we're not talking about it in terms of domination and control. We're talking about it in terms of my ability to respond to what I'm receiving in the moment, and whether that is a responding through going, okay, I'm feeling that right now and that's fine, but I don't have the energy to deal with that, and I know how to remove that from my energy system and say it's not mine, or I know how to do something about it. I can take action and become a force in the world. Now, we don't have those channels of support to help us as healers. Suki saying, oh yes, visited and stayed with a friend of 40 years while away. She was angry all the time, at war with family, felt out of place at sea, hard to talk to, tried and she took nothing in. Yeah, and I really want to acknowledge, and I think this is really important, that when we talk about harnessing our magic in social media, in so much that I see out there in the world, it's like we are, in order to become your truest magical self, you are moving towards having a perfect life where everything is easeful and you are totally in tune all of the time. You're on the peak of the mountain in total on moment. Your body is cleansed, your mind is cleansed, you're eating only the most beautiful succulent fruits. There's this sort of image of the perfected human, which I do not believe in at all. And the reason that I don't believe in that is because we came here to live and to experience and to be the difference. And in order to be the difference, you have to get your hands down in the earth, and you have to know what it means to be in pain and to be wounded, so that you can experience deep compassion for somebody else, to learn how to have empathy even when someone is really messing with you, to learn how to say, okay, you're really messing with me, not my problem, and when to cut off, when to help, when to support. It's not if you are resonating at a perfect, wonderful frequency, then everything is going to happen that's wonderful and perfect for you, because that's a cutting off. That's a saying, all of the stuff that's bad in the world, I'm not going to deal with that. That's not mine. I'm going to go over here where it's all going to be perfect and lovely. No, we came to be the heroes that the world needs. And I really believe that. I'm working with a wonderful lady called Susie Heath at the moment. I'll definitely tell you more about this. I'm doing a year-long program in embodiment. And she says, we are the generation we have been waiting for. And I love that as a belief. I think that's such a powerful belief. Just say, no, we are the generation we have been waiting for. And if you have that healer energy, it can be really hard. And yet you chose to come here. You chose to come here. I believe that we have so much that we can give. So he says, if we were perfect, we wouldn't incarnate. We're here to learn. Absolutely. It isn't. It's not. Oh, I've come here just to resonate my amazing, brilliant energy. Even though I'm sure we all have that, and we all have something that we have to offer. But it is also to receive as well. Absolutely, to learn, in whatever way our life path calls us, is to receive that as well. Now, before we go into, we're here, we're moving into new moon, we're looking at intentions, but you might start to feel in as we're talking around, what are my intentions for my journey as a healer? Where am I right now? Am I in the receiving space? Am I in the responding space, where I'm able to sometimes not necessarily challenge, but bring curiosity to, I'm able to respond and be active when I feel that, when I have an experience like that? Am I in a space where I am either reimagining what might be possible for the person or the place or the situation that I find myself in, and that I might be able to do something to make better, or reimagining and reweaving in terms of my ability to hold myself in that space and to still be a stand for what it means to live joyfully, happily, easefully, all of those things, even when there's chaos all around me. And that in itself is a powerful thing. It's not always about fixing what's on the outside. Sometimes it's about simply standing in your power on the inside is the thing that we need to do. So where are you at this point in your journey of claiming your healer self and playing with them a little bit? What's possible for you? You might ask that question now. What's possible for me as a healer at this time? Now, what I wanted to do was to acknowledge that I think that healers, you can feel free to disagree or put your own bits in the chat there to let me know. I think that healers have a particular challenge which is slightly different to some of the other parts of the magical self when we come into the world. So when you come in as a healer, somebody who receives, who responds to, you might be told that you are overly sensitive. You might be told that you're weak, that you just need to man up a little bit, that you just need to let it slide off you. The sticks and stones thing might come out. Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words may never hurt me. All of those things might come out, which make you feel like small, or insufficient in some way or different in some way, and just like, well, if I could just get this, if it just didn't matter to me as much, if I didn't feel it as intensely, if I didn't, if I had better boundaries, all of those things. I probably wouldn't use that language, would we? But as a child. But there's this feeling of everyone else out there in the world, they've somehow got it, but I don't. And at some point I'm going to grow up and I'm going to get it. That tends to come through. But what doesn't happen is that we're not taught how to, or what's the word, even really incentivized to cut that part off in a way that some of the other parts of the magical identity are more actively suppressed in our society. So some of you will be natural seers. You will be as children. You may well have seen stuff that other people couldn't see. You may have felt stuff that other people couldn't feel. You may have heard stuff that other people couldn't hear. And over time you're told, that's not real. That's not real. That's not real. No, no, no. Or people are just a little bit frightened of it, and you realise that, as long as I keep on talking about this stuff or saying that this is happening, people are just going to look at me as if I'm really weird, so I'm going to stop. It's not, you're a bit sensitive, but that's who you are. It's no, those things don't actually exist. They don't happen. So that's what tends to happen for the seer. Mystics tend to be, they're away in fairyland, sort of daydreaming, all this stuff. Just focus. You need to focus. You need to learn how to pay attention. You need to focus on the facts. You need to get on with your schoolwork. All of those things that give you pleasure and make you happy, those are for outside of real life. This is real life, and this is not real life, and that is internalized. All of those things that I felt as real, no, not real. Again, tends to happen with mystics as well. And magicians are just not given a language at all, and are told, well, anything that you achieved was obviously achieved through your hard work or your dedication or your privilege or your luck, not because of you, not because of anything that you particularly did in the world, other than you're allowed to achieve because you've worked hard. You're allowed to achieve because you're clever, you're bright. There are rules around this, and what has I think has happened in society is that the sage pathway is the most sanctioned pathway, and I'm not talking about the healthy sage, which is part of the magical identity, but the this sort of dominance of sage law, where everything has to be validated from an external cultural position, and everything else isn't real. So the sage says, this is the way, and this is the way, and this is the way, and this is the way. And the healer's a bit like, and it's somehow seen as being, it's just less valued. They're not dismissed in the same way as the other parts of the magical self, but they are less valued. You're not going to be the leader, you're probably going to be the supporter. You're the supporter energy. That's what you're meant to do. I don't believe in that. I think that's total rubbish. And I think healers are fabulous leaders. And I can see that Suzanne, you're saying that's describing all of them, and that's absolutely, for some people they might find a slightly more dominant. One might be more dominant, or they might have developed one or the other over the years. But really, we want to bring all of them together. It's when they're working in harmony together that comes through. Minnie, you're saying I found as a healer, I also tend to be a magnet for people to feel comfortable sharing their pain, suffering, etc. Yes, absolutely. And I know, Minnie, that you are working as a healer, and so you found like an avenue for the responding reimagining. But what can happen for those of us who don't have the training is that we become the sponge, so that people will come and they will say, I'm having a really hard time, and this is happening or that's happening, or they might not even know where they come, and they just feel a little bit better and a little bit soothed after they've been with you. But it tends to be because healers absorb, we absorb what's going on, and it can, for a short period of time, help another person to feel ease. They feel more comfortable, exactly like you say. I can feel more comfort in the moment. But if we are not supported by our societies to then take the next step to help that person with the patterning that's inside, the structures, the energetic structures inside them that are generating that energy keep going. So we're just sort of skimming stuff off the top. And that's not a comfortable place for healers to be. And this is why I believe that healers need to be empowered to become leaders, to become community leaders, whether that's like in your family or with the people that you serve and work with, or whether it's in a sort of like traditional leadery type role, so that you can start to work on the underlying patterns that are causing the challenges in the first place, rather than becoming like first of all the magnet and then the sponge, sort of moving those off. So now I would recommend for anyone who feels as if they have got a natural healer strand, that they do some form of training as a healer, as an energetic healer in particular, because we can bring that out and we can use that at any time, wherever we are, to learn how to channel that part of their identity. So, one of the reasons I'm doing a fabulous masterclass tomorrow on rune healing. Come along if that sounds good to you. And learn more about it. There's many different healing modalities that you can take, and they all offer so much, and they all enhance our pathway of the healer. But have a little feel into that. So what's my next step? What's my next step in moving forward on that journey as a healer? So let's feel into the energies that are supporting us on this journey, and let's feel into your runes. We're going to be working with our 6 spirit guide runes, and that I've selected. Some of them because they resonate with the planetary movements that we're going through this week, and some of them I've pulled from the bag, and we will see what's happening there. I've taken a note of the runes that people have shared already, and I will ask you to share them. Let me just talk a little bit about the planetary movements. And Min is saying, I see it a lot with people who only want to address the physical without acknowledging the spiritual aspect of illness. Yeah, I think so. And I think there's a very complex interplay between the physical and the spiritual, and it's working with both, isn't it? And perhaps recognizing that if we don't deal with the underlying piece, we can then attract other illnesses into our bodies, which resonate with the pattern that we're holding underneath. I do also personally believe that some illnesses come to us as teachers, as life path teachers, that not all illness or disease or suffering or wounding is a manifestation of something like wrong or imbalanced in the energy body. That's my personal belief, but I think that it can be caused by both. Again, great topic. Love to talk about that more. We should have some more chats. I really enjoyed doing the interviews. How many of you have watched the interviews that I've done so far? I've done 4 interviews so far with some fabulous healers and mystics. I've got one more coming on Instagram this afternoon at 3:15 with Sorrel Robbins, who is a just spectacular healer. I worked with her many years ago, and she lives quite far away from me now, but I've referred other people to her as well, which is wonderful. So I'm really looking forward to that interview. I'm going to stay on track now. Let's stay on track. So, our planetary movement. So we don't have anything coming up for the next 4 days, which I'm not sure whether I like that or not. We're sort of easing. Some of the retrograde motion is starting to ease now. We've had a lot of planets in retrograde motion. It's felt a bit icky and a bit challenging and a bit difficult. What I have enjoyed through this period of time has been that sowing seeds, which I talked about a lot with the path of the magician. Now, the sowing the seeds to create new patterns and ways of being that are going to be resonating and vibrating out into the future for a long period of time to come. And that there's still an opportunity for that through the course of this week. It's tailing off a little bit now, but it's still there. So if there's anything that you think, even, I'm working on drinking more water as my habit. I've got I've got a glass carafe with a charcoal thing to filter out the water, and I just keep on filling the glass. Fill the glass, Maggie, fill the glass. Those types of things where you say, this is a habit or a ritual or a routine or a thing that I want to focus my time and energy on. Now is still the time to be doing that. It makes it easier because you are creating a blueprint for the future during this period of time. You've still got that potential, but it's easing off because Urd's chariot, which is currently in Ingu's, the rune of the seed, is actually now also in retrograde and will be going back into Largu's next week. So I'm just going to put that in there for context. So we've got some Thor's in retrograde, so it's, we're harvesting a little bit. We're more in a receiving mode now, less in a sort of expressing out. We're getting more into receiving a little bit, so more of the healer energy coming through. We have the new moon coming up on Friday, and it is a new moon in Rado. So Rado is the rune of the road and of rhythm and ritual. It is very much about the rhythm of movement, when to move forward and when to stop. So let's just feel into that actually. We've got our lovely new moon energy with Rado. We have Suna's chariot is in Rado at the moment, so we've got some strong Rado energy of rhythm, which is where those habits and those rituals and those routines are important now. Earlier in the phase that we worked on with the magician, with this lunar phase, we were looking at sort of bigger projects and aspirations. Now it is more about those sort of subtle habits. What time do I want to get up? How much water do I want to drink? Do I want to go out for a walk each day? Those types of things are going to be important through the course of this week. And they're going to be the things that keep us going in momentum with those bigger projects. I was talked about this before, but the idea is that as long as we keep the wheel turning, momentum keeps happening, and the blueprint that we've created will unfold. Right? So all of these things come together. Our big dreams, our big life projects, the things that we want to bring about, and our rituals, our daily rituals, are enmeshed with each other. So when we keep going with those daily rituals that energize us and support us and keep us in the energy state that we want to be in, then we get to manifest out into the world more of the dreams that we feel on the inside, the big dreams, the powerful dreams. So Rado is supporting all of that. For the healer, that's important in terms of moving from the place of receiving into responding and reclaiming and reimagining, reweaving. Now, just on this point, the Rado is actually quite a nice rune, as are some of the other runes like Aaaaargh as well, which we're going to cover today. Can be quite nice runes, like forward motion runes can be useful for the healer, because the healer in their natural state, without bringing in the other parts of the magical identity, works on the basis of what is fully in the present moment. So if you imagine someone comes in and they've moved into your energy field, maybe you're actually deliberately working with them, they're a client, or maybe they've come in and you didn't invite them in, and they're there and they're resonating, and you're feeling the resonance and you're experiencing it through your body. Now the healer, because they're focused on the present moment, what is present there, will look to fix or restore or realign or rebalance, all of the words beginning with re. They are able to draw on the energies that are present from the past, manifesting themselves in the present moment. They are less able to connect with what might be possible in the future. They need their seer and their mystic to support them in doing that piece. So it's a little bit like, I'm going to forget the name, but is it kintsugi? I want to say the Japanese art. Suzanne always knows. I never do. Pop it in the chat if you know the exact name for it. It's when you have like a vase breaks, and what the healer will do is that they will do their absolute best to restore the vase to its pattern, to its original pattern, to sort of reclaim what it was and to restore it, to fix it in some way. Kintsugi, thank you, Suzanne. Whereas the mystic and the seer will do something slightly different. They all see the potential. So the seer will connect with what's possible as guidance that comes in from spirit, to say this is the way that actually that should be, and that vase actually it shouldn't even be in this place anymore. It will need to be. So it's like, you will know if you've followed up, or you've ever felt that. You're like, oh no, that just needs to be there now, and it might need to be like repainted a little bit, or this is a moment when it's supposed to be gifted to somebody else. And there's lots of ways in which the seer might just pick up on something which is almost like the destiny of the vase, unfolding. The mystic will moves themselves. They move energetically. They're much more connected in with the future and the possibility, and they can see something entirely new. So they can see, for example, the art of kintsugi, where you get the gold and you put it in between all of the broken pieces. So you do not attempt to make the vase what it was. It becomes something different and something beautiful through that process of healing. So, and I think that's an important piece. There is nothing wrong with the path of the healer to say, you are, as you are is absolutely as it is right. There is nothing that needs to be fixed. There is nothing that needs to be changed. You don't need to push yourself forward and become something else. You can be in the moment. To be held in the space of the healer is such a profoundly powerful experience. Of safety and realigning and rebalancing and reclaiming what you were, seeing yourself anew, seeing the beauty in what is in the moment. All of these things come from the space of the healer. The mystic and the seer can bring about like an evolution. What's your next step in that moment? So runes like Rado help the healer to partner with the parts of the magical stuff that are more connected to the future, to possibility and to the future. So the Rado rune can do that. The other thing that the Rado rune can do for healers is to work on rhythm, in terms of instinctive rhythm of right now, it is part of my journey to work with this person on their healing. Moving forward and doing the thing. Rado, the road, rhythm, ritual. And right now, it is my job to move on. Away from that. It is not mine. It is not my responsibility. I might, just because I feel it, doesn't mean I need to fix it. It might be that I, send a message back along the road to another healer, or I leave a sign on the road that says healing that way. Someone else needs to do that. The support is needed, but I am not the support. Such an important part of the healer pathway is to recognize what is yours to heal, to make whole, and to say all of the burdens of the world are not mine, which are mine. So Rado helps with that in terms of the instinctive rhythm as you're moving forward. Am I supposed to stop and help right now, or am I supposed to keep going? I'm literally doing sort of movement now. Okay, so that's Rado with our new moon energy. So on the same day, we have Suna's chariot. So the moon is in Rado, Suna's chariot, the sun is moving into Kinaz. And Kinaz is a really gorgeous healing rune. It can be a little bit, because it's quite intense. It's quite an intense energy for healers, because what it will do is it will bring to the surface whatever is underneath. In the physical body. So if you think about it in terms of the Kinaz rune means sore or ulcer. It also means torch, enlightenment, knowledge. So it brings us that real clarity of knowledge of what's happening in the moment in a very physical way. And it does things, when we talk about sores and ulcers and fevers as well, and bruising, all of those things are related to Kinaz, because it is the emanation of whatever is happening inside, like almost like erupting through the body. That's what Kinaz does. So it's an incredibly important rune for healers to work with, both in terms of being able to connect with its energies, even when you can't yet see them on the surface, when you can't see them on the skin with a bruise or a sore or an ulcer, but to move your hands over the body, and often it's experienced as heat. Okay, the healing is needed there. And being able to use that Kinaz energy to draw whatever is coming up sort of out of the body more quickly, and to not get it into your own body, but rather it goes into the Kinaz energy that you've built, and then you put it into your furnace or your forge. That was a very, very quick explanation of something that is a bit more complex than that, but you get the idea. It's a wonderful healing tool energy for helping us to connect to where is it that the fire or the flame or the transformation is occurring, so that I can work with it more. It brings out the creativity of the healer as well, and it helps the healer to make, let's say, make friends with the sage again, to remember that all of that sage knowledge that right at the beginning I was talking about, and saying that parts of the magical self that have been quashed. It's the sage in society that said we have to do everything based on research and what's in books and what can be proven in like evidential in evidence. That's it. Yeah. Like keen as is about like the physical manifestation, and the sage likes physical manifestation. You know, it likes, yeah, that's in the physical. I can see it. I can see it and I can touch it with my hands. I can dissect it. I can analyze it, and all of those things. Well, many of us will know there are energies that you can't really dissect and analyze, or at least we can't in the present moment. So keen as acts as a bridge. So if you feel as if actually maybe my sage is a little bit too strong, or maybe through my lifetime I have been called to that sage pathway, and I found it very difficult to find the validation that I need from my healer self, the keen as rune can really help with that. I remember there was someone in one of the interviews that we were doing who was talking about being a nurse and a Reiki practitioner at the same time, and that can be very challenging for people who are in professions that are healing professions, but you're allowed to heal this way but not that way. No, this way but not that way. The keen as rune can help to act as a bridge between those things and say, yeah, both are possible. Our ancestors, in putting together a rune that meant knowledge and saw and ulcer and torch and enlightenment, all of these things, knew that they were all bound together. You know, they knew that they were all bound together and that it wasn't like one way or the other way. So a lot of these runes are really useful that have come forward today, are runes that are helping that partnership between the different parts of the magical self. So that's your keen as rune. So we've got 2 weeks of Suna's Chariot in keen as coming up. So if you want to work with the keen as rune, you want to work with the sage and the healer, or you want to work with like experiencing, just looking at your body, you know, and sort of saying, okay, how is my body talking to me right now? And I can look at it there and I can go, oh, you know, I remember this little scar here on my hand, and when that came, does that scar, what does that need? Does it need a little bit of love and a little bit of attention? Keen as really invites us to investigate the body. You know, as I'm moving my hand over here, I can feel a bone that was like I lost one of the sinews or tethers in my hand when I had arthritis. So I've got a bone that sort of pops out there. And keen as goes, oh, I love that bone. I really just, you know, I love it. Does it need healing? No, it's fine. No, it's just part of the expression of your life journey. That's what keen as sort of says. It helps us to tune in very much to the physical body and say, this feels right. This does not. Now, and as I feel that, I can say, okay, there are places in my body that do want attention. That do want attention. Keen as calls them to us, as well as saying to us, no, this is actually, all that's needed here is just a celebration of this part of the body and how fabulous it is. No, let's all celebrate this bone in my hand, shall we? Suzanne says, keen as is my first thread. Never surprises me, Suzanne, never surprises me. Okay, and our final movement is Odin's Chariot is going out of retrograde. Hooray! Yes! That's been a bit of a challenge, hasn't it? It's been a bit of a challenge through this course. I mean, there are reasons, and I've talked about this before. I've talked about the retreat energy. I think about it as retreat energy for the planets. Why it is useful when sometimes those guiding forces move back and say, it's in your hands now. See what you can do. You know, sometimes we need that. We need that sort of autonomy and that independence and that little bit of, oh, this is what happens when Odin isn't helping Zoom to work. You know, those sorts of things. But then he's going to be coming back in, and he will have been refreshed and replenished. And he will have been listening to all of those things, all of those seeds that we planted. He will have been listening to them whispering in the earth, you know. And when he comes back up, he's going to be ready to support us in new ways. You know, so be ready for that. Be ready when he comes out. He's very much moving into a time I always think of very, very powerful Adinic energy, from sort of the autumn equinox all the way through to Samhain. I know there's sort of slightly Celtic festivals, but that period of time always feels incredibly powerful for Odin. So yeah, we can call on him a little bit more frequently as he starts to come out of retreat. So those are our 3 planetary movements. Now, the other runes that I wanted to look at. Aaaaaaargh is an important rune here, and it's come up for me very frequently in the last few days. Here's the Aaaaargh rune. So the Aaaaargh rune looks like a M, which can be confusing, but its sound is E. And the way that I help to remember it, and I hope I turn this the right way for you, is that it looks like a sort of a capital E there a little bit. You know, we can see it there. It's a leap, but we can see it there. and it is the rune of partnership. And when we are working through the course of this month on the magical self of the healer, we are thinking about this in terms of the healing partnership, and we can think about that in two ways. We can think about that in terms of the partnership between your healer self and the other parts of your magical identity, but you can also think about it in terms of people who are coming into your energy field and the type of relationship you want to have with them. So one of the really powerful ways to work with the Aaaaargh rune is to see this as being two people standing, looking at they're facing each other, and their hands are touching. Now maybe they're shaking hands, or maybe they've got their hands like this together, or maybe they're just like very gently holding hands, and they're just looking at each other. And Aaaaargh is often seen as being like quite deep romantic partnerships, often very sensual sexual partnerships, but it isn't just that. It's the rune of the horse and the rider. So it invites in a very instinctive form of partnership between difference, between people who are different. And it celebrates that difference. And it says when the horse and rider work together, and you can see that here as being two horses, like looking at each other as well. So it's two people holding hands, it's the two horses looking at each other. It's sometimes seen, some people see it as being like the curve of the back there of the horse, and that the person sits on it. Quite fun. It celebrates difference, and it says what's possible for us when we are able to partner with each other through difference. So we are going to do in the masterclass tomorrow a longer version of this exercise. But what you can do is, let's say somebody has come in, and this happened to me last week, somebody came in to my sphere, happened to be via email, and they offered a challenge. It's a little bit of an overreach, I would say, in terms of what our partnership had been based on, in terms of the rules of the partnership that we had set up, which is like the Gibo energy, different rune. We're going to be working on that later in the month. Gibo energy is based on contracts. This is the contract, this is what's going to be said, this is how it's going to work. It's like that even flow. It's very much about like equality and balance, and it looks at fairness and justice and reciprocity, very, very much the rules of reciprocity. Aaaaargh doesn't care about the rules, reciprocity at all. It goes where the partnership needs to go. So when somebody steps out of what you thought was happening here, so I was just sitting on the train minding my own business, and I thought the person sitting next to me was also going to be minding their own business and keeping their energy to themselves, but that's not happening. Then you can work with the Aaaaargh rune, and standing, imagine the person standing in front of you. You can see it almost like a mirror, so you can actually imagine a mirror, like glass, between you, which can be helpful or useful. You can also imagine like a waterfall, can be a useful way. It's like a cleansing energy. And you put your hands out briefly, and you connect with them just at the fingertips. It's a very, very light connection. And when we do this, the masterclass tomorrow, we'll go into this more and into the technique of connecting and separating. But essentially that's what you're doing. You're saying, okay, where are we meant to connect? Breathing into that. Where are we meant to connect? And you might feel that as places on the body. You might feel that as a sudden clarity around, yes, I'm supposed to work with this person, or no, I need to hold a boundary here. And where are we not? As I do that, I'm feeling like a pull forwards energy when I'm meant to connect. It's like pulling me forwards towards the person. And when it's a where are we not, I can feel like a cool energy. And the water is streaming down more faster, more powerfully, and it's a colder, clearer energy. And I can feel my body moving back just a little bit. So it's really useful for moving into instinct. Now when you've done that, and again we'll do this more in the masterclass, but if you're just picking up on this now and thinking I want to try that, if you're connecting with the fingertips and the hands, even if you've got that water flow or that mirror going between you, after you have done that and you have received the information that you need from your body or from your seer, might come through as well. Healer tends to feel with the body. Seer might be a bit more visual, a bit more auditory. Lots of different ways that they can do it. Once you have received what you need, step back, release that energy and say thank you very much to the person, whatever part of them they've sent. Maybe you've connected with a little bit of their hide, as it's called in the Anglo-Saxon, their energy body. So thank you very much. and you watch them depart, and you say thank you very much to the aaaaargh rune, and it's gone and it's done. Really helpful way of connecting in with partnership and what the potential of a partnership is and where the boundaries need to be. So have a little play with your aaaaargh rune. It's a great spirit guide rune for this coming month. What else came up? So, in keeping with the, what wants to come first? The aaaaargh rune wants to come up. So here we've got the aaaaargh rune. Let's have a little look. I've got a couple of bits in the chat. So, Esty said, my lunar rune for this month is Thurisaz on its side, looking like a mountain. My rune of the week is Bacano on its side too, looking like a mountain. And this is my rune of the day. Oh, we've got some good partner runes there. We're going to be working on Bacano, and then it said, no, I want to come later. I was like, okay then. So we don't have any of your runes at Esther. So I'm just going to pop them down, and then we'll see if we've got time to cover them, or like one of them at the end. Maybe the Thurisaz, we shall see. Okay, so we're coming to, if you want to share your runes, now is a good time to do it. I've got 3 more runes to cover in terms of spirit guides, but if you haven't shared your rune already, and you would like to, share it in the chat, and we'll see if anything comes up. But it doesn't always. We work on the spirit guide rune. So Sue, we've already done aaaaargh, especially for you. There was that one there. So aaaaargh came up for this week. I said, what's the aaaaargh rune coming here about? And there is a similarity in terms of the aaaaargh rune here. You can see that aaaaargh, if you turn the aaaaargh rune and you take the 2 halves of it and you swap them over, then you get the aaaaargh rune instead. And so there is a partnership, like a separation partnership piece that comes through. Most notably is epitomised by the friendship between the Fenris wolf and Tia. And what I wanted to bring here in terms of the healer and what Tia wanted to share, I'm going to get this right because he was quite specific on what he wanted to share, is he said, if you're working on is the world happening to me or am I happening to the world, then the aaaaargh rune is a really excellent patron rune for you to be working with through the course of this month, because it is the I am happening to the world rune. There is it's quite yang energy. I know it's a different tradition, but if you work with the yin and the yang, it's quite a yang energy. It's a forward motion, directed energy, very focused energy, very sense of truth and purpose inside. And Tia almost refuses to be simply in receiving energy. Whatever happens to him, he will transform that into an I am happening to the world energy. And the most obvious example of that is when the gods agree that the Fenris wolf, Tyr's beloved friend, must be bound, and one of the gods needs to come forward and offer their hand to Tyr, to Fenris, I should say, to put in his mouth, because he doesn't trust them otherwise. You're not going to let me go otherwise. So Fenris is attempting to negotiate partnership with the Gibo rune. He's saying, I will do this, because I want to prove my strength. I want to do all of the stuff. But only if one of the gods puts their hands in my mouth, so that they will know that if you don't let me go, I'm going to bite their hand off. That's basically what he says. So he's attempting to create a Gibo contract. Now, Tia knows that at that moment they are going to step out of the Gibo contract into aaaaargh, because one of the gods is going to do something unexpected, something that the Fenris wolf cannot imagine happening. Namely, that one of the gods will say, absolutely, I'll just sacrifice my hand because it's so important that he is bound at this point. So we're moving into a different partnership here. And Tia could step back. He could say, okay, I know this needs to happen. My healer self tells me this needs to happen. The part of me that knows that the world needs to remain whole and that Fenris will devour it. That needs to happen. And it is going to be really painful for me because he is my friend. But in order to stand in my truth, I can either be a victim in this moment, I can be a victim of somebody who's experiencing this friendship as broken, and the Fenris wolf and I will both become victims in this moment because our friendship will be separated at the same time. Or I can step forward and say, I will do this. And I find it difficult to articulate, but to me, when he does that, it's not just a him standing in his power and saying, I will be the force that happens to the world. I will take responsibility for this. I will shoulder this responsibility. But he offers immense respect to the Fenris wolf at the same time. He says, you know, of all of the people that you respect, I am the one that you respect the most. I am the I suppose like the sovereign deity or the chosen representative of my people in your eyes, and therefore I will do this for you. I'm not going to step back and, you know, hide in the corner while this happens to you. I am going to suffer with you. And I think that the Fenris wolf knew that. I believe that. I believe that the Fenris wolf knew that that would cause suffering to Tyr. The bonds of their friendship was that strong, that he knew that. Just feeling into that a little bit. It's a very difficult piece. I think it's a really important teaching tale for us, because it can be seen very much as a story of betrayal, can't it? You know, that Tyr betrays Fenris. But it's almost like he would have betrayed him more if he just let it happen and wasn't an active participant in the moment. He wasn't the one doing it. He wasn't the one saying this needs to happen. Yeah, see what you think about that. Have a little feel into that. But it's about standing in your power and saying sometimes we need to separate. Sometimes we need to take hard choices in order to maintain another partnership. You know, the partnership of life, of our partnership with life that the Fenris wolf was threatening in some way. Whew, that was quite a big energy there. Okay, so final two runes. We have the aaaaaaargh rune coming through. So the aaaaaaargh rune again, and interesting. It's similar to the Tewas rune in terms of the lessons that it wants to bring forward for us. With the aaaaaaargh rune, it's saying when the aaaaaaargh rune happens to us, it can feel difficult and challenging, and we can feel weakened and diminished by it. But when we are, what's the word I want to look for? When we are able to become the storm and travel with the storm and ride the storm, we become the change maker. And it is that ability to ride with the storm and to be the storm and to embrace the energy of aaaaaaargh, rather than sort of doing that so that it bounces off us. It's that opening up. It almost sort of passes through us then and allows change to happen, and we become part of the change in that moment. There's a respect for the aaaaaaargh rune as well, and I think that's important to recognise. It's like a not hiding from reality rune. The world is changing, you know, like climate change. You know, climate change is happening. What are you going to do about it? How are we going to respond to that? How are we going to change our ways of living and being in order to ride this tide that we have very much participated in creating? aaaaaaargh rune comes along and says that nature has responded to something that we have created, and so it's a little bit like Tyr again, sort of saying, and you can sort of step to the side and go, oh no, this is terrible, or you can go, yep, I'm getting involved in that. No, I'm getting involved in that. So the aaaaaaargh rune is useful for you if you feel as if I need to bring change out into the world, or if you want to get from that point of feeling like I'm helpless, drawing in the aaaaaaargh's energy in order to say, how can I become part of that energy? How can I become the part of the storm that is needed to bring about the changes that are required in the world, so that we can respond to the present moment rather than grieving for a past that has already gone. You know, we are the generation we have been waiting for. We need to step up into that, is what the aaaaaaargh runes offer. So the Tewas rune and the aaaaaaargh rune are, interestingly, they're both at the beginning of the families, of two rune families. They're very much initiator runes. It's like there's an initiatory experience for the healer that's being offered by both of these two runes. We'll see what happens with Feyu. I know we might have Feyu coming up if we have time. Suzanne says, I'm not a Christian, but I see that in the Judas role with Jesus. Yeah, it's an interesting point, isn't it? If you were to say, you know, if the disciples had all gathered round, now, I'm not Christian either. I was brought up as a Christian, but there is, it wasn't the right path for me. If everyone in that circle knew that someone was going to have to take on that betrayer role, and essentially that's what God says, isn't it? It says, one of you will betray Jesus. That is a fixed point. Now, in the Northern tradition, we believe in those fixed points. We believe in soul contracts, let's say. I have come to perform a job, and however difficult that job might be, I'm going to do it. And in that sense, Judas isn't necessarily evil. He does an evil thing, but he is taking on in a way he's taking on a sin, isn't he? You talk about like Jesus taking on all of the sins in order to cleanse. He is taking on, Judas takes on a sin. Now, we can see that in terms of him being led by the silver more than by his love for Jesus, or we can see it as him taking on a predestined role that was needed in order for Jesus to fulfill his life purpose. Either way, it's an interesting tale to look at in that sense, and you can see perhaps some analogies there between Tyr and Fenris. Someone's got to do it, therefore it's going to be me, is what Tyr says. Our final rune for the healer for this week is Manaz. And Manaz knits together all of these different parts of the self. So whereas with the Aaaaargh rune, when we're looking at partnership, we're feeling into it, and that we've got that swaying motion going on, which is very Aaaaargh with the swaying motion to feel into the instinct and to know what's needed. Manaz is very stable, it's very secure, it's got this structure here that keeps it stable and secure. So this is the part of you that does integrate all of these different parts together and says, I have chosen this course, I stand in my power around it, I have a strong partnership between my healer and my magician, I have a strong partnership between those that I collaborate with, there is trust in the world around me. So for you with the healer, it's about looking at what's already there, celebrating what's already there for you. This is how far I've come. This is how, even without support and guidance for many of us, I have managed to step on my path as a magical human being in the world. I have managed to retain the faith. I have managed to find the teachers, the books, the learning. I have managed to follow my instincts and my intuitions, regardless, all of those things. So it's a celebration of what you already are, which is important, very important for the healer. It's not always about need to do this, need to move forward, need to do this. It is about being fully present. And again, try not to get on the sort of Christian bandwagon too much, but it is my cultural heritage as well. And one of the things that I found quite difficult was the lack of standing in your power and saying, this is me, this is who I am, this is what I contribute, this is my value. And this is something that is incredibly important in the Northern tradition. It's why we do the symbol rite in Awaken and in Mastery, to allow us to have the experience of claiming our power and being recognised for it by others. That's what the Manaz rune is asking the healer to do. The healer's gifts are very devalued in our society. So it is our job to stand up for them and to know their worth. And most of you, if you are following the healing path, have at some time experienced deep and profound healing offered by another person. So if you find it difficult to own the gifts that you own, take this rune and do a similar exercise to the Aaaaargh rune. Imagine the person who gave you that healing, or the spirit, whatever it is you want to do, standing in front of you. Offer the gratitude to them, and then allow it to be received by you as well. Just to start to feel that. Now, if you have received something of such power, you've given it as well at some point. Okay. Manaz rune. So, let's have a little look. I can see Minnie is saying you've got the Aaaaargh rune. Let me see what we've got here. So, Sue, you've got Feyu. Let's have a little feel into Feyu, because that was really interesting that we had Hargalaz and Tewaz coming through quite powerfully as being stand in your power runes. And we've also mentioned value quite, that came through quite strongly, didn't it, with the Manaz rune. And Feyu brings about that same value energy, real sense of value. For the Feyu rune for you, Suki, and whoever else that might have the Feyu rune, what I'm feeling here is almost a sense of deservingness. we can do some really deep and powerful healing work with the Feiyu rune. Interestingly, it hasn't come forward for us to work with in the masterclass tomorrow, which I was expecting it to, but no, I said, no, it's not the time for this one. But so important for us in owning our value as healers is to work at a very deep level with the Feiyu rune, because the Feiyu rune will find those places in our bodies where we're saying, for whatever reason, this part of me is not deserving of full, abundant life force energy. Can you imagine what happens to our cells when we don't allow the oxygen, the nutrients to be offered to parts of us? No, not for you. The flow of abundance isn't going there. Now, all of us have Feiyu energy in us, because if we didn't, we would be dead. That is, Feiyu is life force energy. And yet we are being programmed all of the time to say, you're allowed to have this type, but no more. You're allowed to have this, but no more. Wanting that is greedy. Desiring that is wrong. Feiyu is, again, when we talked about Ewas, Feiyu is also a rune of deep sensuality and sexuality. And that can be programmed out of a little bit, or it can be like commodified. It's that real feeling into the juiciness and abundance of life, and saying, there is no part of me that is not deserving of the fullness of life. I'm working with the Feiyu rune to find any places where that's not flowing for you. So have a little bit of a play with that, Suki, and anyone else who has Feiyu. Suzanne, you've got Feiyu 3 times in your birth runes. Yeah. Letting that Feiyu energy in. If you have runes in your birth runes, it means that working with that rune as a spirit guide offers you such access to your own personal power. That's what they are. That's what they're there for. They do talk a little bit about like personality and like story, like mind stuff, a little bit like other forms of astrology. But they work energetically. They're so much like keys to us for our own energy. So if you have, if you already know your birth runes, great time to be working with them through the cycle of the healer, to be saying, what could I be accessing? What am I missing? What could come through more powerfully for me through the course of this time? Michelle, you have aalgghs. So do you, Mina. So let's have a look at aalgghs. We are going to be doing some work with the aalgghs rune tomorrow, which I'm really excited about. This is not one that I've shared in a group before, so I'm very excited about it. The aalgghs rune is so much about helpers out there for the healer. It can be, particularly if you feel lonely on your path as a healer. We do a piece on my advanced certification where we connect with the energy of the aalgghs rune as a guide for healers. So it's really interesting there that Minna, you've got aalgghs, and Michelle, you've got aalgghs there as well. It's to go into the whole exercise. It's sort of it's the energy of the Disir, it's the energy of the Valkyrie, it's the energy of the Nornir. It's that sort of destiny piece, and that saying, as a healer, you are engaged in some of the most powerful and important work available to us on the planet at this point. That reclamation of our connection with the earth, of our connection with our bodies, of our ability to recognize what is wrong and to fix it, comes through from aalgghs. And so those guiding spirits are incredibly invested in those of us who are either feel like we're natural healers or have committed to that pathway. And so you always feel the aalgghs rune coming in behind you, with the shape of the aalgghs rune coming in behind you. It's like a rainbow light that comes up and down the spine and then opens out and wraps around your arms. You can draw it in. No, it's a really lovely exercise to use there. Oh, it'll be a fun one for you. Suzanne says, I use aalgghs daily as my protection and connection and do an aalgghs ritual. Yeah, it's gorgeous, gorgeous rune to support us in the work that we are doing. The last rune that's come through a couple of times is Thurisaz, but it doesn't want to chat. I think it's going to be coming later, so we will have to wait for that. So I'm going to leave you with your algae rune. So just a reminder, you can still sign up for the masterclass. A few questions that have come through about the masterclass, important to know. So yes, there will be a recording. So if you cannot attend live, you can come along and participate via the recording. Obviously, it's great, it's fabulous if you can come live, that's wonderful, but you don't have to. I already have sign-ups for Awaken coming through. People are interested in that. So as a reminder, if you are interested in joining Awaken for the runes at this present time, you get that masterclass included. So it's worthwhile to do it now. You know, if you know, yes, Awaken is for me, do it now. You get the masterclass included in your package, which is lovely. If you have already done Awaken, if you've already done Mastery, or you're presently in Mastery, and you are thinking about doing your certification as a rune healer with me, or you are thinking about coming on Adrazel's Path, my Northern Tradition program, then tomorrow's masterclass is the first step. So if you're thinking, yes, I know that those are in my future, you know, whether it's this September's cohort for the certification for healing, or whether you're going to be starting Adrazel's Path with me in October when that comes along, the masterclass is the first step. So sign up for the masterclass. I will be including, for people who decide, yes, I'm going to do the certification, or yes, I am going to do Adrazel's Path, a discount, so that you will get your money back from the masterclass if you decide to sign up. You don't have to decide to sign up, but if you do, it's my gift back to you. So, any doubts about you're going to do the masterclass? Oh, shall I do the masterclass? Shall I not? It's worth doing it, you know, because then those other options become available for you as well. Okay, I think that is it. I hope to see many of you at my interview with Sorrel Robbins at 3:15 this afternoon. I'm really looking forward to that. Thank you so much to those of you who have joined me live, and thank you to those of you who are watching the replay. Do hashtag replay. Lovely to hear from you and say hello. So many blessings, and looking forward to this coming new moon. And I can see that a couple of you have said, you know, I've not selected my lunar rune yet. That's absolutely fine. I know those of you who haven't selected the rune are often already members of Suna's Star Wheel, so you'll be getting your guide to the month ahead coming this week, with your meditation to support you with that, and I do a longer piece there, longer spoken. You get a video as well where I talk you through all of the energies coming for the month ahead. So look out for that in your inboxes. Thank you to everybody. It's been lovely to see you, and I will see you all very soon.